From Classrooms to Careers is presented by the Spring Branch ISD Alumni Foundation. This series is made possible through the generous support of First Community Credit Union.
Well, welcome to Six Schools, One Legacy, from Classrooms to Careers, where we highlight the stories of exceptional graduates from the six high schools of the Spring Branch Independent School District. Each conversation explores the path from student life to professional life, the lessons, the challenges, and the moments that shape the journey. I'm Paul Marks, a 1976 graduate of Memorial High School in the Spring Branch School District, and I'm your host. And today I am delighted to be joined by Dr. Mica Endsley, who is a 1978 graduate from Springwoods High School. Welcome.
Thank you, Paul. Happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about where you were living when you were a child and the schools you went to up to your time at Springwoods.
Well, I actually went to elementary school in Arizona, and then we moved to Houston, and I went to Spring Oaks Junior High for 6th through 8th grades, and then to Springwoods High School, and I was Mica Robertson back then. So
Okay. All right. And so once you got into Spring Oaks and your junior high and high school years, what are some of the things that you remember early in your education in Spring Branch School District?
I think I was very lucky that my family moved into the Spring Branch School District. It was one of the top school districts in Houston at the time. I think it probably still is. But I got an outstanding education there. And I think when you're a kid, you don't realize that. You just go to the classes, your teachers, counselors tell you to, and you take your classes. But I know afterwards when I, went to college, I really learned how good the education was that we got there. A number of wonderful teachers. I was ill a lot my freshman year of high school. And I remember specifically Mrs. Tipton, the geometry teacher, staying after school to tutor me so I wouldn't fall behind and that I would stay up with my classes. And, things like that were just above and beyond. I really remember. And, I had the opportunity to take computers in junior high as well as high school, which those were very new then.
Yes.
We were working on remote terminals to some computer that was downtown somewhere and learning, punch cards and ticker tape to code things. We took a computer class in BASIC, and that was very cutting edge back then. But it prepared me well for, I think, what came later. And then, of course, a lot of other excellent teachers like Mr. Stone, who taught calculus, and our physics teachers and chemistry teachers that really gave us an edge, I think, when we were going forward.
Were you involved in either junior high or high school in any kind of organizations or clubs or things that would have been extracurricular?
Yeah, I was involved in a number of the extracurricular organizations like National Honor Society and Alpha Pi Mu and some things like that. But I was particularly involved with Explorer Scouts. We were very active in that in high school. I made a lot of great friends, some of whom were at Springwoods and some of whom were at other high schools. But it was sponsored by Exxon, and it revolved around computers. But really, I think more than anything educational, is really about learning leadership skills and organizational skills and a lot of things that served me well.
So during your years at Springwoods, you mentioned that you've been ill your freshman year, and you had your teacher who helped you kind of keep up with everything.
Yeah.
Uh, what were some of the highlights as you were getting closer to graduation from what you were? I mean, obviously, one of the big things that faces kids who are planning on going on to further education is, what do I need to do? Were you working with your counselors to help you figure out those types of things?
The counselors were instrumental. I didn't have any real clear idea of what I wanted to do. I think as a young person, but I scored well in math, and so the counselor at the junior high actually put me in these science and math classes. It wasn't because I had a grand desire to do it, but she saw aptitude And by paying attention to that, she was able to track me into the classes that put me ahead. And I think that was really beneficial. By the time I got to my senior year, I was able to take second year chemistry, second year physics, and calculus, which were really college level courses. And I remember that for the physics class, there were um, four of us at Spring Woods who would drive over to Spring Branch High School every morning to take the second year physics class so that there would be enough students combined to offer that. And that was a great opportunity because when I got to college, it was all repeat. I already knew how to do it, and things that were really creating big roadblocks for a lot of my fellow students, I had learned in high school, and that was really beneficial.
So you're coming to the year of graduation and you started applying to colleges, or did you have a college in mind that you specifically wanted to go to?
So I had no idea what I wanted to do, to be really honest. And my senior year of high school, one of my friends heard about this program that the Society of Women Engineers up at Texas A&M was putting on. And it was a weekend retreat for high school girls who might be interested in engineering. And she wanted to go, and she wanted me to go with her. And I says, okay, I'll go. And I had no idea what engineers did, to be really honest. But it was a fun weekend, and we learned all the different things of engineering. And I says, well, maybe this is something I could try. Maybe this is something that would suit me. And so I then focused into industrial engineering, which is what I ended up making my career out of. So little things like that, I think, can make a big difference in forming a person's life, the trajectory they take. And then I later went on and got my bachelor's degree at Texas Tech in industrial engineering.
How did you choose Texas Tech? Was it something that you knew a lot
Um,
about, or you had friends going there?
well, I did have some friends going there, but I was putting myself through college. And so while I applied to some out of state colleges, they were just too expensive to go to. And I didn't, know anything about student loans at that time. So I went to Texas Tech because I had a job in Lubbock working as a draftsman. And drafting was something I had learned in high school, actually. But it was a good way to put myself through college. And it worked out very well. And I ended up really liking it there a lot.
What came first, the job or being accepted at Texas Tech?
The job, actually.
Yeah.
And then I applied. I did my freshman year at Texas A&M, and then I transferred up to Lubbock and worked there and stayed.
Okay. All right. That's it. And then, so tell us, take us, because you have a lot more education to talk about. Talk a little bit about some of the other things that you ended up doing, because I know you got your master's at
Yeah.
Texas Tech as well, right?
Well, so one of the real advantages of working your way through school is you learn a lot about what you like and what you don't like. And by the time I had graduated, I realized I really didn't want to work in a manufacturing environment because I had worked in those as a draftsman, and it just doesn't really interest me. But I got very interested in one of the classes I had taken, and it was on human factors. And human factors is really a combination between engineering and psychology. And I'd always been really fascinated by psychology. I didn't want to be a counseling psychologist, but I was interested in how the brain worked. And so when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do as graduation was approaching from college, um, I said, I really want to go on for graduate studies and focus on this field of human factors, which is really about designing technology to work for people. And to me, that was like the perfect combination of my interests. And Purdue had a really great program in that. It was a multidisciplinary program, so it combined. It was half your classes were in engineering and half your classes in psychology. And I thought, well, that's perfect. That's what I want. And so I went off to Purdue for my master's degree. I really enjoyed it. Indiana was really cold, so I kind of wanted to leave after that. But I wanted to go out and work and see if I really liked the field, if I liked practicing it. So from there, I got a job at Northrop Aircraft in Los Angeles, and within 6 months, I had applied to University of Southern California to their Ph.D. program. And Northrop had a wonderful program where um, they would allow you to go for advanced studies. They would pay for it. You had to show up with an A or a B in the class, and then you'd get reimbursed. And so each semester, I would take a couple of classes, and eventually, I got my doctorate at USC in industrial and systems engineering. So it was really a great way to go.
Did you have a goal in mind when you were saying, "Okay, want to get my master's, and now I've got my master's, I want to go get my PhD." Was there an ultimate goal professionally in mind that you felt you wanted to have that educational background for?
I have to say I wish I was goal oriented that way, but in the end, I was just taking things that I found really interesting,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed doing. And to me, that was the most important thing. And I enjoyed my graduate studies. It allowed me to really focus and develop skills that allowed me to do research. And if you'd asked me back in high school or even college if I wanted to be a researcher, I'd have said, "No way, that sounds too far flung." But I turned out to I really enjoyed doing research, and that was where the PhD allowed me to do.
Talk a little bit about, as far as your occupational career. You mentioned Northrop. What happened after that?
Right. So while I was at Northrop, I was doing cockpit design on fighter aircraft, which was fascinating. I was working with our AI group, which is something I had studied in college, both at Purdue and at USC. And we were looking at really sort of the cutting edge of automation and AI coming into the cockpit. We worked on some of the early programs called Pilots Associate, where they were trying to put AI in cockpits. This was back in the 80s.
Mhm.
So that's how long ago they've been trying to do this. And I got really interested in this whole issue of how AI and automation affects human performance because it puts people out of the loop. And I I thought this was a problem with situation awareness. Um, that was a term that the pilots used a lot. It was really important to have situation awareness, and so that was what I ended up studying for my dissertation at USC. Um, and I found out there really wasn't a definition of situation awareness. There's no way to measure it, and that ended up being what I did for my dissertation. As I developed the early work in that field, and then that just really has taken off, and it's actually formed the trajectory for my entire career because I was one of the first people to do that work. Um, in when I finished my PhD, I decided I wanted to go into teaching, and I moved back to Texas, and I was professor at Texas Tech, and was able to expand that research into a lot of other areas where people have these challenges. So we moved out of fighter cockpits into commercial aviation, air traffic control systems, a lot of other areas. In '97, I started my own company, SA Technologies, and have been really working as an independent consultant and running a small business as we have expanded a lot of that research work for other kinds of domains. So we've worked with, the Army, the Navy, NASA, power systems company, oil and gas companies, driving systems, everywhere people are struggling to work with really complex technology and AI and automation. Those have been the areas where we've done a lot of work.
Where are you living now?
I'm currently in Arizona. Um, when I was running SA Technologies, we had a distributed business. We had headquarters in Atlanta, where I was living at the time. We had a Dallas office. We had other people distributed across other states working remotely. But one of our big programs was with Boeing here in Arizona. And so my husband and I moved out here and we're working as a liaison with our main office back in Atlanta that was working a large program for the Army.
Some of the highlights, or the things that you really enjoyed about, working on some of the projects you did. I know that NASA was involved in some things. What are some of the things that you've been able to accomplish that you're most proud of?
Well, I think, when you're an engineer, you want to fix things. You want to help make things better and improve technology. So, what I've really enjoyed is working with so many different people in so many different domains, and you work with the end users, the people who are struggling to make technology work, whether it's soldiers in the field or pilots or we were working with NASA. We were working with the control room engineers. They're really struggling hard to do their jobs well. And so when you can try to design the technology to work for them instead of against them, that makes their life so much better. You learn so much about what their challenges are, how they think. It's always interesting. It never gets dull because there's always so many new challenges. And that's one of the things I've really enjoyed about my field.
Yeah. Looking back now, I mean, we mentioned that you graduated from Springwoods in 1978. At the time of taping this interview, that's 2 years away from your 50th reunion.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about the time that's passed and, you know, what has that meant to you? I mean, everything that you've been able to accomplish since being at Springwoods, and I guess that was your the kind of the seeds that were planted for where you ended up was there.
Yeah, I mean, you never imagine that, or certainly I never did, as a high school student. I think I was, fairly quiet and I had no really idea, so I never had these big goals in terms of what I was gonna do. I just sort of, I think, always looked at the next opportunity and the things that were in front of me and said, "Yeah, I can do that, and I can do that." And I think that kind of attitude served me well, because it kept me open to new opportunities and new challenges that I would have never foreseen, way back when. One of the big surprises to me happened um, a few years back, about 10 years ago, I guess, where I got a call one day saying, "Would you like to be chief scientist of the Air Force?"
Huh,
And I was totally surprised by that. I was here, I was running my company, we were doing a lot of things, and here was this call, with this great opportunity. And I couldn't have planned how to get there if I'd have tried.
sure.
But because I, was open to things, I would serve on advisory boards. I met a lot of people, and so they knew me, and they said, "Yeah, this is a person who has the skills we need." And the chief scientist position is really interesting. This was a position that was created when the Air Force was formed, and the generals realized that everything the Air Force does is really tied to technology. So they needed an expert to come in from outside of the Air Force who could guide them in terms of what was the next great thing. Where were the new challenges going to be at that they were facing? um, to really take a look across what the Air Force was doing and saying, where could we be doing better? Where do we have problems that we don't know of? So it's really interesting independent position. It's a 2-year position, that they generally would pull a top person in a particular field out to come in and give them that kind of guidance. So I was at the Pentagon for 2 years, and I reported to the Secretary of the Air Force and the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. And it was just this amazing experience where not only did I go all across different military bases, but also to all of our countries that we work with, our allies. We could go and review what they were doing. So you have a coordination role. You serve as sort of a leader for STEM. So we would do a lot to sort of promote science and technology and education for people who were interested in that field. So it was really interesting. It turned out, this was in 2013, I was the first female chief scientist the Air Force had ever had.
Huh, wow.
And that kind of surprised me. I thought, wow, that would have happened a long time ago. But it was interesting that I was the first.
Did you get to do any flying with some of the Air Force different jets they had? And
I did.
yeah,
It was really exciting. One time I went out to the test pilot school in California, and they took me up in a F-16. They had a two-seater there that they used for different purposes, and so they took me up, and I thought I was just getting a ride. And the guy said, "No, take the stick." And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not a pilot. I can't fly." And he says, "Oh no, you can do it." And it was so easy. It handled so beautifully. I was doing barrel rolls. It was an amazing experience. And another thing I got to do was go up in a U-2, and I could see the world at 70,000 feet. I could see the curvature of the Earth. It was an amazing experience. Those are some of the highlights. Most of it was not that exciting, but
yeah,
that was fun.
yeah. That does sound like fun. Well, before we close the interview, I wanted to ask you: Do you, looking back now on what you've been able to accomplish over your career after you left the high school and the Spring Branch School District, if we have current students who are watching this interview, what kind of advice or what would you like to be able to tell them to help them along their journey?
I tell them, take as many broad courses as you can. because you never know what you're really going to need. Even though I had been tracked in this math science career, I think some of the things that I learned in high school that have been fundamental to my success were not math and science. They were learning to write, and I'll never be a great novelist, but I have to write a lot of technical writing, write a lot of papers, books. You have to be able to communicate. I was very shy in high school, and I took drama and speech.
Hmm.
Not because I was interested in that, but because I knew I had to learn how to do public speaking. And that turns out to be a skill I use all the time. I mentioned I took a drafting class in high school. That put me through college. A lot of classes you don't realize what you're ever going to do with turn out to provide really fundamental skills you're going to need to make you successful. So take that broad base, be exploratory. It can matter a lot in the long run.
Well, that great advice, and thank you so much for sharing that with us and today. And taking the time. I do want to thank again Dr. Mica Endsley and for reminding us of how powerful this journey can be from classrooms to careers. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, and good luck to all the students out there.
Yeah, and I want to thank our audience for spending time with us, and we encourage you to continue watching as we share more stories from the remarkable graduates of Spring Branch Independent School District, because every legacy begins somewhere. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been From Classrooms to Careers, presented by the Spring Branch ISD Alumni Foundation, made possible by the generous support of First Community Credit Union.